My friend, do you want to create the reality that you most want to experience? We're about to explore the path of some practical knowledge here. Now, you might wonder if it's practical knowledge, then why am I wearing these glasses? Great question for emphasis. Because in today's video, I'm going to be emphasizing some of the practical steps that you can apply in your life right now in order to connect with the visions and the dreams you have and implement them effectively into your reality. Now, I'm Danielle Lynn. I host videos like this where I talk to intentioned people such as yourself. I do it my way, which is why I have very cool outfits. And I am energy effective. It is actually one of the reasons why I have successfully scaled multi-million-dollar businesses across about 10 years. Now, whether or not you personally grow businesses, whether or not you are scaling a company, I imagine the information in today's video is going to be of assistance to you if you yourself are someone who is choosing to bring your visions or ideas from conceptualization into reality. Now, I found personally that after a time in marketing, I was less and less interested in utilizing my skill set towards guiding people towards outcomes that I didn't full-heartedly align with. So I started to get curious myself about what mattered to me. What did I actually value? What did I want to see cultivated in the world? And then I utilized much of the knowledge that I had learned to great effect in growing, scaling businesses, in guiding attention, and channeled it, so to speak, into work that I find deeply fulfilling, that is deeply aligned with my heart and who I am, and ultimately, I believe and perceive, cultivates the kind of world that I'm excited to live in through sharing empowering perspectives with my fellow rad cats, such as yourself. Now, I imagine something important to define here is what we mean by success. In this case, I'm simply describing success as one's ability to live your version of a thriving life. Your version of success may look vastly different than another person's version of success. By and large, I have experienced the definition of it to be how you are, do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. So, as we continue on this video, once again, I'll share some principles, pulling them from my experience in business, but I invite you to consider how they may apply to you in your life. Because these fundamental experiences can be translated across the spectrum of human experience that I find. And so rather than, let's say, needing to spend a decade yourself doing this kind of work, I invite you to glean these reflections as I share, if you like. One of the ways to expand your perception about what's possible and what is by doing things such as reading many different kinds of books, traveling the world, talking to many different kinds of people from many different kinds of background. These things can assist us in expanding our horizon because in doing so, we start to realize, let's say, how much of a mental echo chamber we can sometimes live in. And it allows us to expand the range of possibilities that we can perceive, we ourselves can tap into. So one of the first notes I'll make is I noticed that many people who successfully implement their visions into reality will often engage in an experience called masterminding. In masterminds, what often happens is you have a curated group experience of networking. Because some of the deepest value that I have seen that comes from masterminding is actually the joint ventures or the collaborations that emerge from forging real life friendships or real life connections with people in person. Because people tend to have a greater degree of trust with someone they meet face to face than, let's say, they do in other formats. See where your strengths are, where your yeses are, and then you can explore collaborating with those who have strengths where, let's say, you have quirks, and you have strengths where, let's say, they have quirks. And sometimes when you collaborate in these ways, you can find you're very effective. Each person being as they are naturally, and yet in coming together form a very effective structure that is able to do all kinds of marvelous things. But we don't know until we at least allow ourselves the curiosity to explore and conceive what might be possible. Because this is exactly what we're talking about right now. The conception of new possibilities, the conception of new probabilities, of being able to go a few steps beyond of what's just been tried and true, and to maybe pull some of the fundamentals that are effective from the rootstock, there's that word again, the rootstock of what's been tried and true, and then perhaps apply a little bit of our own pizzazz to the situation to great effect. Or perhaps try it out and go, well, that was interesting, didn't work at all, what now? But anytime we spend, let's say, thinking in our heads, what could go wrong, what could go this, what could go that, well, that's just speculation. There's only so far, I find, that speculation can take us. And you can allow yourself, let's say, to speculate a little bit, to have a little bit of inquiry about the leap or the step you might be taking. You can actually take measured steps, measured, consistent steps towards a direction without necessarily, let's just say, unhinging yourself to great effect. And sometimes think, well, maybe that's going to take a lot of time. Time is a perception. Time flies when you're having fun. Time might slow down when you're watching the clock. Time is time is time. I will say to you, what takes an eternal amount of time is not doing it at all, is not taking any step at all. You can see what time shakes out as you take the step. But I find it far less of a concern of how long something will take. Once there is a determination that the step is being taken, time is all relative at that point. Time is just part of the equation that gets to sort itself out along the way to my successful destination. And this right here is the attitude that I am highlighting for you, for us, for any of us. This is what starts to shift things beyond the scope of effort and time and doing into the embodiment of what it is to be someone who is determined. The determination itself can be actually grounded in something like, I am living my version of a thriving life according to my values in a way that's mutually beneficial for me and all involved. I get to live it my way. I get to experience it my way. It gets to be my version of a grounded yet mythical life. Because a grounded and mythical life could look something like a homestead for you. It could look something like where you're working with a team that you love and you live in a place that you enjoy and it's just so enjoyable. It could look like your business, like you're running your business. All right, here's another one. The people that I have met that embody success, they are flexible in mind and spirit. They are often curious and willing to explore new concepts, even if it's something they're not familiar with. Now, the number of people I came across who were willing to do things like explore an astrological reading or to dive into the esoteric visualization of success in their business was astounding. And I'm not talking about just women. I'm talking about men who had never talked about some of these concepts before, were willing to test some of these esoteric concepts to see if they would work. They were simply curious. They're like, well, I don't know about this, but I'll give it a shot. Let's see if it works. That fluidity and flexibility and willingness to experiment on different things allowed them to open up their minds and possibilities to the way things could be. Another one is adaptability, the ability to shift in changing times. I find in order to effectively market, it requires a certain degree of flexibility of the mind and spirit, a certain level of curiosity and willing to think and act laterally. While there are some tried and true practices, the ability to meet the moment in a compelling way creates powerful marketing. One of the success principles is being decisive. So rather than spending a lot of time thinking about things only, I find that people who embody a success principle will oftentimes think about things and then at a certain point give themselves permission to enact or embody them in the world. They make decisions fast and they make decisions clearly. Now, sometimes those decisions result in what you might call a success. Sometimes they might result in what you call a failure. But as some people have said, I find that these kinds of people, they fail quickly, fail fast, fail often, and as a result, they also succeed quickly, succeed fast, and succeed often. It's almost like they're giving themselves permission to have iterations of shifts. There is less attachment to the way a specific thing needs to be. There is more of a willingness to pivot, iterate, or optimize as they go. And this brings us to the next step, the willingness to iterate, a willingness to potentially pivot, to be adaptable. If you are going in a certain direction, if you imagined, let's say, your business or the creation was going to turn out a certain way, but along the way, something new and successful emerged, you might take that path instead. In other words, you might adapt because you're seeing the indicators of success. An example of this in business would maybe be the story of Cracker Barrel, where they actually started as a gas station, but then they were a gas station who wondered, how would we compete with other gas stations? So they came up with the idea of building a restaurant with the gas station because that would encourage people to choose it, sit down to eat, fuel your car, and they built them only along highways. The funny thing is, eventually it was simply only the restaurant built around highways. Isn't that fascinating? Another trait that I've noticed of highly prosperous people. They tend to set down foundations for anything they're growing or building. They allow themselves to merge, let's say, their desires with a certain amount of self-discipline. Now, how is this being pointed to in your own life? Because you might be wondering, what does this have to do with me? I'm not even running a business. Your life, your visions, your dreams, it's like any other organization. For a business, the goal may be centered around, let's say, a financial outcome, things like this, input, output. But your life can follow a similar parameter. Where you have visions and dreams, you can put them into motion in the world. You don't have to want money, or you don't have to want a business for these to work in deep effect for you. It is understanding that life is really about play in any way that is joyful for you. You can create a YouTube channel, wear antlers, and talk about businesses that you've scaled. You can do what you feel inspired to do. The question is, what do you feel inspired to do? Now, there are structures that I have put in place in order to allow myself to effectively say, be my antlered self, dispense information, and then have it land in a way that is meaningful for those who are viewing. Can you see it? That is the foundation of, let's say, embodying your core resourcefulness, your ability to be resourceful no matter what it is you want to do. Whether you want to do a business, whether you want to be an employee, whether you want to do freelancing, whether you want to travel the world and shrug your shoulders, whatever it is you're doing, I have no particular judgment or description of what you should or should not do. But I will tell you right now that these principles that I'm sharing are applicable across every single area of life because they're not just the principles of business success. They are what I have found to be consistent markers of those who are simply successful in living the version of reality that they want. Now, I'm going to emphasize this whole experience. One of the reasons I busted out my credentials and these glasses was simply to emphasize that what I share about navigating one's reality, it's rooted not only in esoteric knowledge, it's rooted in very grounded, practical, embodied steps. Alchemy itself is a merging. In this case, we're talking about the merging of, let's say, polarities, the merging of the very practical, very, very earthy with the fantastical, the wise, the expanded. And it's not losing yourself in one or the other, and it's not even saying that one is better than the other. It's offering a wider view that you don't necessarily have to be a choosy person when it comes to, oh, am I going to do this or this? There is an entire spectrum open to us to play with, to navigate with. And from my experience, the only true limitations are the ones that we consistently impose upon ourselves. Now, there may be parameters that may appear to be limitations that we agree upon temporarily to have a co-creative experience, but that's a bit different, at least from my perspective. So, would you like to have more fun in life? I invite you, if it feels resonant, watch this video again. Listen to it a different way this time. Listen to it from the perspective of how you are cultivating your life experience. Not because anyone's telling you what you got to do or to do this or to do that, but from the perspective of where you can naturally allow yourself to shift beyond what you thought you knew and to start allowing yourself to go beyond dreaming and begin embodying the actualization. Be it your way. Experiment. We're all experimenting, baby. Let's allow ourselves the opportunity to be curious and to understand that we can simultaneously be silly and deeply effective. That's been my experience anyway. And so, my friend, as I continue to imagine you embodying your version of success and empowerment, I invite you to share any questions, reflections, deeper explorations you may have in the comment area here. It's always a delight to explore with you. Now, if you would like to go deeper with me personally, I have in the link the Flow Book. It's a wonderful tool. There's also a link to the Self-Alchemy Lab. It's a fun space, a community, but more importantly, a library where I share certain tools and perspectives for those who are choosing to live a more intentioned life. If you are feeling very grounded at this stage and would like to go further with reality exploration, that may be a path. Now, perhaps you might be wondering about working with me directly personally. All right, if you can navigate that one, then we will explore talking. My friend, I appreciate you, and in all cases, I look forward to our next conversation.